Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another episode of the Chocolate Sheikh. Inshallah, today I'd like to deal with something I heard in these YouTube streets concerning Islam being spread by the sword. Now, the person who said this considers himself a Pan-Africanist. He is also a doctor in his field, and I find it very interesting that over and over again, we have people who dub themselves as doctors or who have gotten education enough to be a doctor will come out and say things that are so factually incorrect. And furthermore, things that are easy for even non-scholars to find. A simple Google extraction would tell us that this idea that Islam was spread by the sword is absolutely false. In fact, we know that Islam as a religion was mostly spread, especially in places like Africa, that's where some of our black scholars tell us that Islam was forced on the African, right? And it disrupted the African's way of life. This is what I myself was taught when I was in college. And also in India and Southeast Asia, where Islam, again, was supposedly spread by the sword and disrupted those people's lifestyles. You can easily find that this information is absolutely false. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to say that, of course, we know that Islam, like every other way of life, has instances in history where people were forced to convert. So we're not being ignorant here, nor are we being fanatical about our own religion. We understand that, and absolutely there were some forced conversions. This happens in every way of life, no matter if you're a material secularist, if you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, etc. All of these religions have periods and times in their history where we can find that people were forced to convert, or if you didn't convert, it meant that you would either lose your lives, or you would lose your property, or you would lose your face. So let's start out by saying, first of all, we're not being fanatical about the religion of Islam. We know that people have been forced to convert. But what we're saying is that these instances, as with other religions, are mostly things that are done on the minority side. That's not the way that Islam spread around the world. Islam mostly spread around the world via commerce. And of course, as Islam itself, as a religion, started to march through the lands, the people or the governments themselves became Muslim, and the people followed suit through times, looking at it as perhaps a better option than the former rulers. We know that that's partially the way that Islam came into West Africa. They looked at the religions of the former rulers, and the people who were non-Muslim at the time started to see these new Islamic rulers come in and how they dealt with things, economics, justice, rule of law, etc. They were attracted to it, and then through time, they became Muslim. So history also points out to us, as Islam spread through the globe, as the message of Islam spread through the globe, that we find that a lot of people, in fact, within the first 200 years, did not rapidly become Muslim. You see? So as we start to study, you find out that Islam in the first 100 years spread all the way from Europe, all the way in to China within the first 100 years. However, it took after 200 to 300 years before the populations where Islam initially spread started to actually accept it as a religion. So although the government may have become Muslim, or those persons who were Muslim were able to get control of these governments, the people themselves were basically left alone through time, and they came to Islam on their own. Most of the time, that's how Islam came in. Of course, when it came into Africa mostly dealing with trade, especially West Africa, where my ancestors come from. How do we know that? Because the West Africans wrote it down and they told us that. So there's no ambiguity there. There's no trying to figure out complicated historical movements on the planet and how things happen, because history is very complicated, right? It's not just one thing. History is very, very complicated. But with the Islamic spread in West Africa, that's not complicated at all, because the West Africans told us. They wrote in their books and in their scripts how Islam came to them. And they told us that Islam came to them through trade, period. So now we don't have to go back and forth and fight what it was that our West African ancestors said. So why is it that today we have modern scholars who would tell us, especially modern black scholars, again, always very surprised by our black scholars, especially when they wear the epithets doctor before their names. Come on, brothers and sisters, what is this? Is this hate, jealousy, ignorance? What is this? That we still have black scholars from the time of Dr. Chancellor Williams until today, what I heard out here in these YouTube streets, another doctor making the claim that Islam was spread basically through empire. That's what he's saying. When there's no evidence for that except from one person who called himself, or who was referred to in history as Peter the Venerable. This is a man that lived in the 1100s, and who happened to be a French abbot. He was a French monk, so he had ulterior motives. He even authored one of the earliest French translations of the Holy Quran. And why did Peter the Venerable do this? He did it to knock down Islam. He wanted the Quran translated in a way to make it look ugly to the French people and other Europeans who at that time were still converting to Islam. So Peter the monk, Peter the Venerable, his whole project was to talk down on Islam during the Crusades. That's what that was about. So here we are all these years later, where the Orientalists and others are now taking from the writings of Peter the Venerable, who was known to be a person who hated Islam. And he was looking for ways to always attack Islam and give Islam a bad name. So how is it today that we have black scholars as our dear Chancellor Williams and other black scholars who read his works and his materials, and now who are parroting what it is that Chancellor Williams got from his Orientalist European folk? And that's very interesting to me. These same black scholars who rail against these Europeans. Some of them, when you read their writings, you could almost say they hate those people. But at the same time, they'll use those people's works to rail against Islam. What is that? That's very suspicious to me. It's very unsettling as a black man who's a Muslim here in America. It's very unsettling. So now we have another doctor saying that Islam was basically spread by empire. This is how the world came to Islam. Not that Islam was a religion as Prophet Muhammad gave it to us and settled it with us in our minds and in our souls, that people already had a leaning toward the idea of La ilaha illallah, that there's only one God, and that people naturally felt a relationship, affinity toward their own prophet, their own guides, their own sages, these people who led them, that people didn't have love in their hearts for these people. And they said, yes, I will follow you because of how you are. You're a beautiful example of what a human being is. No, the people wouldn't listen to those people. And that's what brought them to La ilaha illallah, or there is no God but God, or the people who would bring them to the religions of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, etc. No, that's not what brought the people. No, what brought the people was empire. Okay, the people were beaten into submission or were fearful of the empire, so they accepted the way of the empire. This is what people would have you believe about Islam. And now we know again that's categorically false. There's absolutely no evidence for that except what came from initially Peter the Venerable. And again, all of this goes back to that man. There is no other evidence that points to that. And everybody sources this guy for that information that Islam was spread by the sword. So I had to get on my channel tonight and deal with this malicious lie that people keep telling on the religion of Islam. And I have to say also, I'm very sorry to hear or see that it's black scholars who will continue to spread this lie. What is this? As I said earlier, is this jealousy? Or is this just hatred? Is it ignorance? Because I would sure like to know. And we offer a challenge to brothers and sisters who are out there who are saying this. I don't care if you're a Pan-Africanist. I don't care if you're a socialist. I don't care what black bag you're in. We would like to offer a challenge to knock that back. Now, I'm a black man, and I'm also Muslim. And I know as a black man and a Muslim that the religion of Al-Islam, as Judaism and Christianity, belong with and to black people. And of course, all these religions are universal, maybe with the exception of Judaism. But we know that Christianity and Al-Islam are universal religions. These religions take in all peoples. But we're going to also add the fact that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are also religions that came out of the bellies of black people. These religions originated from more ancient black traditions and religions. And the Quran so much as so tells us that Islam is not new. Islam is a religion that came with the earliest of human beings. It's their way of life to understand that there's only one God, and that you have a messenger that's sent to every tribe and to every people saying the exact same thing. There's only one God that's worthy of worship. Only one. And this person is your man that you have to follow. This is your sage. This is your prophet. This is your guide. This is your guide. This is your man. You follow him. And that man would have you be rightly guided and bring you into full civilization. This is what Islam teaches us. And again, we know that these religions, the ideologies of them, the philosophies of them, all of this comes out of Africa. So why do we have modern day black scholars telling us that Islam was spread to black people via empire, or to the rest of the world via empire? Where is this coming from? So again, let's stop this, brothers and sisters out there. Let's stop this. I'll end this video by saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is God highly glorified as he tells us in the Holy Quran, in chapter 61, verse 8, and I quote, "They wish to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouths, but Allah will perfect his light, although the disbelievers hate it." End quote. So I offer that statement to those who are out there, who are listening on, who may be looking at the religion of Islam or any type of moral apparatus to better their lives. I believe in Al-Islam. I came to it because I believe it is the superior way. However, if people think there's another way that's superior, fine by me. I applaud you. Go ahead and take it. So long as it's a moral way and it's good for you and it's good for humanity, then I fall back. However, for the people who are trying to extinguish the light of Allah, the light of God, with their mouths, repeating things from these devilish white folks from the days of yore, the same devilish white folks they talk down on and they stomp down on all day long in their sermons and their speeches and their preaches, right? It's all good when they can do it. And then all of a sudden, they want to turn on Islam, which is a black religion. It comes from the belly of black peoples, and then talk down on Islam. I just don't understand it. So with that, I'll close out this episode of the Chocolate Shake. If you like what I said, please like the video. If you have not already, subscribe to my channel. And if you don't like what I said, leave comment in the commentary section, and we could work it out, God willing. Y'all take care. The Shake loves you. Peace.